Good evening. The regular meeting of the Southern Shores Town Council for December 3rd, 2019 is now in session. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. In just a moment, I'll ask you to join me in a moment of silence, but I'd like for you to keep your thoughts and prayers, keep the people of Ocracoke Island in your thoughts and prayers this evening. They've gone through a lot. Their needs are still very real. We've had great support from our town, our community for these folks, but it's never too late to help out more. Anyway, please keep them in your thoughts. Thank you. Thank you. Council, are there any amendments or motions you'd like to make on the agenda? Otherwise, I'd ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Chris. All in favor of approving the agenda tonight for tonight's meeting, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have an agenda. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda, Council, which is the council meeting minutes from November the 6th, 2019.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor of approving the consent agenda minutes, council meeting minutes, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. We have our consent agenda has been approved. At this time, I'd like to recognize the outgoing council members, but before I recognize them, I'd ask if any of them have anything they'd like to say tonight. Fred?
Yeah, I got a few comments. First of all, I want to say I'm not a politician. I think the last election showed that. But I am a concerned citizen like the rest of you here, and my attitude is if you're going to complain about something, try to do something about it. And that's what I've tried to do the last 4 years. It's been a great experience. I got to admit, though, there's been some challenging times, no doubt about it, and there always will be, and that's good. I've always strived for transparency and good discussion on the issues. Sometimes we debate them, but that's what it's all about, is talking and getting issues out on the table so the public knows what's the council is trying to address. But I'm not here to talk about me so much, but I will mention a few things that have been very important to me during my last 4 years. And when I attended the League of Women Voters forum that we had for all of the council candidates, I was really impressed with some of the things I heard from the new council, and I'm sure they're going to do a good job, and I'm going to wish them well. One of the things that I've been striving for has been developing a good strategic plan with a good supporting budget, and every council member at that forum said they were going to work on that. And that makes me really happy, and I think it's good for the town as well. Also, another critical issue is cut-through traffic. I think the people have spoken and have indicated, and I know during the campaign, when I went door to door, that was a big topic. They wanted to talk about it. And that's something that this new council also said that they would address during the forum, and I'm sure they'll do a good job at that. One thing I did learn going door to door, it's not just the residents that are impacted by the cut-through traffic during the season, but some of the tourists that are staying here, they're impacted as well. A lot of them that are up on Wax Myrtle and Sea Oats, they suffer the same problem. So you don't want to lose those people. So cut-through traffic is a critical issue. This council, the one I've been on, we formed a committee to look at ways to address and improve the cut-through traffic problem, and I would encourage the new council to support that committee, and it's got a good start, but it has little ways to go, and whatever support you can give them that's positive, I'm sure they'll really appreciate it. And I noticed Tommy Carroll's here tonight, and I know Tommy will appreciate your help. And the last thing I want to say is I wish the new council good luck, and I'll certainly support you. If you ever want my opinion, feel free to call me. But at any rate, thanks very much, and I appreciate serving, and good luck to the new council.
Thank you, Fred. Chris, anything you want to add?
I just want to say thanks to the residents of Southern Shores for allowing me to serve, and also echo Fred's comments and wish the new council the best of luck. I'm sure they'll be great. There'll be challenges too, but they'll get through it, and hopefully we left the town in a better place than when we came in, and I'm sure they'll do the same. So thanks, everybody.
This time I'll take just a few minutes and recognize our outgoing council members, Chris Nason, Fred Newberry, and Gary McDonald, for their service to our town over these past 4 years. I made some notes of I thought I'd like to share with you. Despite being divided on many issues, this council was able to accomplish a number of very positive things for our town. Many of these were the direct result of the efforts of our recently retired town manager, Peter Rasco. We saw continued and expanded rebuilding of our streets. We saw the construction of a well-received walking path on East Dogwood. We saw a stormwater infiltration basin developed at the intersection of East Dogwood and Highway 12, which mitigated a serious hazardous flooding problem. We completed a minor but critical beach nourishment project along the southernmost portion of our beach. We were able to assist our volunteer fire department in the construction of a much-needed state-of-the-art fire station to be completed in April and May of this year. And finally, work will begin this week, in fact began this morning, on our South Dogwood walking trail. So we had, I think, a pretty good history of achievements and accomplishments on behalf of our town with the council members that are leaving as of today. I would ask for a show of appreciation for our departing members, if you would do so. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, can I mention one thing?
Certainly, Jim.
I'd like to go back to what I said, I think it was at the last council meeting, and to very grossly paraphrase Teddy Roosevelt. He said something to the effect that when a man gets in the boxing ring, win, lose, or draw, he deserves our respect because he got up there and fought the fight. And to Chris, Gary, and Councilman Newberry, I think that certainly applies. Town of Southern Shores is a town of volunteers. They stepped up and volunteered, and we thank you.
Thank you, Jim. This time I'd ask our town clerk to administer the oath of office to our new council members. You can all come up. You want it one at a time? Thank you. You guys can step down. This time I'll ask the departing council members to step down and the newly elected council members to take their seat. Thank you, gentlemen. This is addressed to Elizabeth, Matt, and Leo. Thank you for running. My congratulations to each of you on being elected to the Southern Shores Town Council. I look forward to serving our town with you during the remainder of my term. I thank you. This time I'll open the floor to our new council members to say a word if they wish. Matt, you're the first on the list if you want to say a few words.
I'm always first, I think. First, I want to thank the voters of Southern Shores and our members of our town for allowing me to serve in this position. It's truly an honor, and I'm a little speechless at the moment to be up here, so thank you for that. I also want to thank Gary, Fred, and Chris for their past service and setting the bar and giving us an example to follow. Beyond that, I haven't sat in an assigned seat for some time, so I'm going to take a little moment to get used to this and hopefully move forward, and that's all I have. So, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Elizabeth?
Not to be too repetitive, but I also would like to express my gratitude for the people of Southern Shores voting for me. And it was a long and interesting campaign, and I enjoyed meeting as many people as I did and getting the opportunity to talk to as many people as I did. And I would just say to you that the best way for you to get out of this council what you think we should do is to keep talking to us. So I would encourage you to do that. I want to thank Fred and Chris and Gary for their service. It's not an easy job, and we appreciate all that they did so very much. So thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Leo?
Well, I want to thank, of course, Chris and Fred and Gary for their efforts. I've been through that before, so I kind of understand what they had to go through. But I also want to thank the residents of Southern Shores that returned me to council here. Want to thank Jim Groff, our treasurer, for keeping everything straight and honest and the paperwork all completed. Although those people that contributed to our campaign, I see the two guys from the sign committee are here, is Larry Gallick and Ross Mitchell. They're the ones put all the signs up for me, and of course Jim helped there as well. And lastly, I need to thank Mary Ellen for supporting me in running for town council again, because it was a challenge for a day or two there. But anyhow, thank you, dear. And that's all I got, and looking forward to moving the town forward.
Thank you, Leo. We're now on tab 4 of our Organization of Council in 2020 meetings. The first item of order of business is the election of a mayor pro tempore. Ben, do you have anything you want to tell us about this that I don't see here on the paper?
Mr. Mayor, it can either be a motion to appoint somebody, or if somebody objects to that, a nomination process where we would go through and go through each of the nominations and until we got a majority vote. But either way is fine under the law, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ben. At this time, I would move that we elect Elizabeth Moray as our mayor pro tem. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion, council? Any further thoughts? All in favor of Elizabeth Moray being our mayor pro tem indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
You're our mayor pro tem.
Appreciate it.
Council, I need a motion to adopt the 2020 council meeting schedule. Proposed resolution 2019-12-01 per North Carolina General Statute 160A-71 and 143-318. Do I have a motion to adopt that meeting schedule for this year, 2020?
So moved.
Thank you, Leo. Do I have a second? Is there any, go ahead.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Any concerns? This new meeting schedule does show us having 2 meetings a month throughout the year. We'll have a workshop meeting the third Tuesday, and of course in the morning, and of course a regular meeting on the first Tuesday of the month. Motion's made and passed to have our council meeting, our proposed council meeting schedules approved. We did, didn't we? I said all in favor of that.
Did we vote? First and second on the motion, do we need to vote? We do need to vote.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Sorry, thanks, Elizabeth.
No worries.
You're in the right spot.
No, I've been here, done that, so
I'm glad to have you up here.
it is, no worries. It's a lot to remember while you're talking.
I have some
You're doing great.
vision issues.
Me too.
At this time, I want to combine some appointments, the Dare County and Regional Council Committee appointments. I'd like to nominate to the Dare County Tourism Board of Directors. We're required by the county to furnish them 3 candidates. We list a primary candidate and then 2 others for their consideration. And I'm going to propose that we nominate to the county Leo Holland, Elizabeth Moray, and Jim Connors. The county will make the final decision, but that's the people we're going to send to them as our recommended members of the Tourism Board. I'm also going to recommend that we ask Jim Connors to serve as our Dare County GovEd Access Channel Committee member. And included in that recommendation would be the Albemarle Rural Planning Organization, the ARPO, which is basically our contact agent or contact organization to tell us what's happening, mostly in what's happening in eastern North Carolina with our traffic and general, not just automobiles and trucks, but also the ferry service. I've asked, Matt Neal has asked to serve on that committee, and I would like to nominate him at this time. So I need a motion, council, to approve those three nominees, if you will, to those various boards.
So moved.
Thank you, Leo.
I'll second.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Any further discussion? Anybody want to back out?
Which one did my name pop up on?
That was the meeting you missed, Jim.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dare County GovEd. That was Fred Newberry's job the last 4 years.
It's a 2-year appointment.
All of them are 2-year appointments. Thank you, Elizabeth. The next item on the agenda is the Capital Infrastructure Improvement Planning Committee, and we are going to delay or table that selection of the people to that committee to our January first meeting in January. The reason for that is we have to fill 2 spots on that board, and we haven't got the people nominated for those positions yet. So, with your permission, I'd like a motion, council, to table Capital Infrastructure Improvement Planning Committee appointments tonight and move them to January, the first meeting in January.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Jim. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Matt. All in favor of moving that decision to the January meeting indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion's made and carried to not make to address the Capital Infrastructure Improvement Planning Committee nominations in January. The final motion I'd like to make is to ask Elizabeth Moray and Matt Neal to serve as the council advisors to the exploratory committee to address cut-through traffic. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Leo. Any discussion? If not, I'd ask for a vote to approve Liz Lamari and Matt Neal serving on the exploratory committee to address cut-through traffic. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So Liz Lamari and Matt Neal will be serving on the committee that Tommy Carroll heads up at this time. Thank you. This time I'd like to call on Derek DeRazio. Derek's with the, if I'm not mistaken, with the Census Bureau.
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you with us.
I got some folders for each. I have 5 folders.
That's going to be enough. Thank you.
And also come bearing gifts. You guys can take a little census swag and pass the bag around. Some of the first in the state to have that. Thank you. Well, thanks for having me. Again, my name's Derek DeRazio, Partnership Specialist with the U.S. Census Bureau. I'm assigned to promote the 2020 census, which is coming up on April 1st, 2020, in all the 10 counties of the Albemarle region. I'm either the primary or the backup for those counties. I'm a backup for Dare County. Miss Brittany Wheatley cannot be here tonight, so I'm covering for her. By way of background, I'm a veteran. I'm a Coast Guard officer. I was stationed right here in East City, so I'm familiar with the area. I was also stationed in Wilmington and Atlantic Beach, and have worked all the different Coast Guard stations up and down the coast from Oak Island up through the Outer Banks. So I'm very familiar with the area, although I don't currently live here. I live in Lake Forest in Lake County. But my message tonight is that the 2020 census is 3 things: important, easy, and safe. Any order you want to say it. Our goal is to count everyone once, only once in the right place. Everyone counts. The average self-response rate for the 2010 decennial census for the 10 counties in the region was 76%. Dare County was 78%, a little ahead of the curve in 2010. The governor's goal for the 2020 decennial census is having an 82% self-response rate. I want you to look at one thing. Back in 2000, you all have a sheet in your packet there. You can see the rates of 2000 and 2010 and compare the differences in the counties. Back in 2000, the response rate for Dare County was only 37%. I wasn't with the Census Bureau in 2000, but I was talking to folks, I understand the census was not taken seriously here in 2000. There was not really a viable complete count committee, and it wasn't promoted. But in 2010, it darn sure was taken seriously. It had a viable complete count committee, and you upped the numbers to where it was. So I think this case in particular points to the importance of being a part of the complete count committee of Dare County. Now, as I understand, you should have a representative on that committee, but if you don't, you need to get somebody appointed to that committee to help with those efforts. I said the census was important, easy, and safe. I'll lay a background before we talk about that. The census is required. It's constitutionally mandated. It's Article 1, Section 2. So when y'all take your oaths about supporting the Constitution, you're going to support the census. Every 10 years, it's required. The first one was 1790. But back then, we had 3.9 million people. Today, we have over 330 million people we have to count in this country. We cannot do it alone. That's why we're here making these presentations, trying to get the support of the local towns and the counties to help us get that message out about the importance of the census. The other thing about the census, although we do a decennial census every 10 years, we actually conduct different surveys every day, every month of every year. There's over 100 different surveys that we conduct in addition to the decennial census. Those other surveys go out to small, randomly selected segments of the population. So 1 in every 40 or 50 households might get one of those other surveys. There are things like the American Community Survey, the Economic Survey, the Housing Survey. They go out throughout the year. But the decennial census goes out to every single household every 10 years. That's the difference between those surveys. The nice thing about the decennial census, it goes out to every household, it's all short form. So you might remember back in the old days, some folks got a long form, some folks got a short form census. But now the decennial census is all short form. It's 10 questions, 10 minutes, you answer it for your household, and you're done. So it's very easy to do. Why is the census important? Does not rocket science. The more people you have, the more political power you have, the more money you get. That's the bottom line. Political power. The census is involved in what we call apportionment. Okay, so there's 435 seats in the House of Representatives across the country. All the states compete for those seats based on population. Now, we're seeing a migration of population generally from the northern states to the southern states. So the governor believes that if we count everybody we think we do in this state in 2020, we're going to pick up 1, if not 2 seats in the House of Representatives. So we have 13 currently, we'll pick up 14 and possibly 15. That may not sound like a lot to the common person, but that is a big expansion of the state's federal power. That's why the governor set that 82% self-response rate that I talked about earlier. And he's formed a state complete count commission to promote the census statewide, because he wants to get that other seat or two in the House of Representatives. That's apportionment. The second thing with political power is redistricting. Okay, everybody knows about gerrymandering. We have a lawsuit going on in this state right now about the voting precinct lines. They're going to be redrawn in time for the 2020 election. They'll be redrawn again in 2021 based on census data. It's required every 10 years. The census provides the data to the states. And after the decennial census, the states redraw the voting precinct lines. So we don't do redistricting, but we provide the data for it. So if you're concerned about gerrymandering, about having fair voting precinct lines drawn, just don't talk about it. Get counted in the right place. So there's a good database of those distinctions on it. But the money's the more resounding thing, I think, for most people. $675 billion a year in federal funds are distributed based on census data. Over the next decade, that's about $4 trillion if you do the math. There are some independent studies that suggest each person in North Carolina that we count is worth $2,000 in funding per year for the next 10 years. Conversely, if we miss somebody, we're losing $2,000 a person per year for the next 10 years in this state. That money trickles right down here to their local communities. So it's imperative that we count every single person that we have living in this community as of April 1st, 2020. If you are here April 1st, 2020, you need to be counted. So you get your share of those federal dollars. There's over 132 federally funded programs that are based on census data. A lot of them education, a lot of kids programs, a lot of transportation-related programs, and so forth. Another thing, if you talk to some county and town managers, the NC sales and use tax, although that's not federal funds, there's a per capita basis for some of that distribution of those funds. That's also based to some extent on census data as well. So that 7% or so sales tax you all pay, that comes back more to you if we have more people in the community, because that's based on census data as well. So it's important for local funding for sales and use tax as well. Census data is used in many different ways. You have a sheet in your packet there called the 50 ways census data are used. And some of this information is on the back table for you all in the audience here too. You can grab it when you walk out. But it's basically used to inform database decision making at all levels of government, business, and individual levels. Not anymore. Decisions are made based on the numbers, on the math, on the data crunching. Who's the honest broker of that data? The U.S. Census Bureau. We provide that data so that decisions can be made about education, healthcare, roads, transportation. So businesses know where they want to expand or contract or hire more people or not hire more people. So we provide that data, and that's the engine that fuels this database decision making. I said the census is important. It's easy. For the first time in history, you can do the census on your phone, your mobile device, your phone, your laptop, your computer. Okay, this is the first time we're doing that. It's 10 questions, 10 minutes. You will be sent a postcard to your house in mid-March. Okay? If you don't get a postcard, you get a letter or something like that. Something we send to your house in mid-March. When you get that, go on your phone or mobile device, complete the census for your address. You count everybody in your household. 10 questions, 10 minutes, and you are done. If you don't want to do it on a mobile device, you don't have connectivity, you can call a regular landline number. It's translated in 13 different languages. So say you speak Spanish, just pick Spanish, and it's translated for you. You do the census over the phone. Or if you're really hell-bent on the paper, we still have some paper forms available as well. So you have 3 ways to do it. But the mobile device is the easiest way to do it. We did a test pilot at Rhode Island in 2018. About 70% of the folks there did the census on their mobile device successfully. So we're really thinking that will help drive up the self-response rates for the census because it's so easy. And again, 10 questions, 10 minutes is all short form. You're done. If you don't respond, we come knock on your door. But don't be bothered. Just respond to the census when you get the postcard in the mail in March. Here's a timeline. You all got a timeline in your packets as well. Again, mid-March is when those postcards go out. Census Day is officially April 1st, but we start to self-respond in mid-March. We're going to send you no less than a total of 5 reminders to please self-respond to the census. Okay, 5 times you'll be reminded from mid-March through the end of April. After that, come May, June timeframes when we start knocking on doors and collecting the census manually. Having said that, we also have job openings. Because we know everybody's not going to self-respond to the census. We need to hire folks to go out there and take the census manually from those folks that do not self-respond. If you're interested in one of these jobs, they are very well-paying jobs. And you need to apply now, get your name at the top of the list if you're interested in applying. Okay? They're temporary jobs, they're going when the census is over. We're gonna start making the phone calls January, February, March timeframe to hire folks to take the census. I think in this county it pays roughly $15, $16, $17 an hour, plus 58 cents a mile every mile you drive your car. You're paid from the minute you leave your house to the minute you come back. They work from home positions and they are flexible hours. So if you're interested in applying, I have recruiting cards back there. Go to 2020censusjobs.gov. Get your application in there. If you're a veteran, like I am, you get preference. If you upload your DD-214, you go right to the top of the list with your veteran's preference. Okay, I said the census is important, easy, and it's safe. This is the hardest nut to crack because there's a lot of mistrust of the government today, particularly the federal government. Now, what's important to understand, you got a sheet in there as well that talks about confidentiality in your packet. What's important to understand in this regard is that the Census Bureau is like any other federal agency. When you give us your information, it's compiled for statistical purposes only, but your personal information is not released, nor can it ever be released under Title 13 U.S. Code. Other government agencies can share information among government agencies. The Census Bureau cannot. So if we release your personal information, you don't get in trouble. We do. Under Title 13 U.S. Code, we get imprisoned for 5 years and a fine of up to $250,000. We take a lifetime oath to protect the confidentiality of all information that we collect. So that means we do not share your information with immigration, with the police, with the IRS, with your ex-wife, with the bill collector. Nobody. Your information is safe and secure with the Census Bureau. Supreme Court took it one step further. Census information is not releasable in any court of law. It's not discoverable in a lawsuit. It cannot be subpoenaed by any judge in this country, local, federal, or state. It is not subject to a Freedom of Information Act request. And under the Patriot Act, which is this wide-sweeping legislation where basically they think you're a terrorist, they can get your information anyway. Under the Patriot Act, the Supreme Court has ruled, and DOJ has concurred, that census data, census personal information, is exempt from the Patriot Act. So taken to an extreme, I'll give you an example to flesh this out. You could be a terrorist, 32 warrants out for your arrest. You could be a rapist, a child molester. You could be here illegally. We will not release that information. Somebody's going to catch you, but it's not going to be us. So we're not going to release that information to anybody. That's how much your information is protected under the law. The only exception to that is after 72 years. Okay, it's called the 72-year rule. Some information is releasable through the National Archives and Records Administration for family and genealogical research purposes. So you can go back and research your ancestors from 1940, for example. That information was released in 2012. And you can see your family tree based on census data that way. That's the only possible exception to this confidentiality rule. Electronically speaking, okay, I had the IT folks explain this to me. Have y'all ever heard of a census data breach? Never happened. 16,000 attempts a day to breach census data. It's never happened. Knock on wood. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but it hasn't happened so far. As I understand, the reason for that is because when the information is transmitted electronically, the only opportunity a hacker has to seize that information is the few microseconds it takes to go from device to our secure servers, which is represented by that safe. Our servers are not connected to the cloud or the internet. Unlike Amazon, Yahoo, all these other places that have breaches, they do e-commerce. They have to have two-way communication. We do not. The only way you can steal our information is basically go and physically take the information from our secure servers, which are under lock and key. So again, not saying it's never going to happen, but it hasn't happened yet. It's probably not going to happen. We have the most secure, probably the most secure federal agency for data that's out there. Very important to know this, though, because you're going to see these folks emerge. We never ask for full Social Security number. We never ask for money or donation of any kind. We never ask for PIN codes, passwords, credit cards, bank account information. None of that. Somebody's out there doing it. It's not us. Okay, so scammers will emerge. When you get this, when it comes up, you can call me. You got my card, but call law enforcement and let them know, because it is a scam and it's not us. So you're going to see these scammers emerge. Please know that that's not us. Okay, we try to count everybody, but we know historically certain populations are hard to count. These are folks that have been underrepresented in previous censuses. The first one on that list right there, children 5 years old and under, for example. In 2010, we undercounted children 5 years old and under by about 1 million children across the country. But think about those communities with those children growing up for the next 10 years. Say each one's worth $2,000 a year. Those funds not go to those communities. It's a big problem with Head Start programs, especially, in some of the urban communities, especially with Head Start, not enough Head Start slots because the children did not get counted. So we got to correct that deficiency. We're going to correct it now in this census, we hope, but we need your help. These are the target populations that have always been hard to capture for us, so we need to market our message in particular to these particular types of populations. How do we do that? I mentioned it before, Complete Count Committee, CCC for short. The CCC is where we get government and community leaders and public members that want to participate together to market the message of the census, and that's that it's an important, easy incentive to all those target populations as well as to everybody else. Let folks know when you get that postcard in the mail in March, go ahead and self-respond to the census. And conversely, if you do not self-respond, once we go start knocking on people's doors, cooperate with the census workers. Don't threaten to shoot us. Don't slam the door in our face. Don't run away. We're just doing our job. Your information is safe. It's important, and it's easily collected. So that's what the Complete County does. It markets the message of the census to those folks who might otherwise trust us. You are the trusted local voices of the community. That's why we have a Complete Count Committee. So you can see the different members that we put on Complete Count committees, including government, education, nonprofits, faith-based institutions are big on that as well, because people listen to their ministers and their preachers, businesses and so forth. So we get those folks together to form this Complete Count Committee. We have a lot of free tools available, anybody that's interested. Basically, those last two websites there, if you just Google 2020 Census Outreach, you'll have all the tools and information. Everything in your packets is on that website and a whole lot more. We have information sheets for every demographic out there, from farmers to lesbian, gay, transsexual, bigender, or whatever populations, to minorities, any population demographic you have. We have an information sheet for you to market the census to you, as well as a whole lot of other tools. It's all available on that on those two free websites right there, completely free of charge. How can you help? Okay, I understand we're looking at doing a resolution or a proclamation of some type here tonight. That's the first step in helping. Hopefully we'll get that done and taken care of. And again, hopefully you participate in the Complete Count Committee, because that's critical to Dare County. You can distribute printed information, distribute digital information, help us recruit workers, because jobs are needed, and we need the people to apply for these jobs now. We don't have not even half as many applicants as we need for our jobs in this community right now today. So we need more people to apply for jobs. So these are some of the things that you can do to help spread the word of the census. Again, jobs, jobs, jobs. There's the information. Recruiting cards are in the back if you want to take one. And there's my contact information. So if you have any questions, I am done. Yes, sir.
The previous slide that you showed, how can we help?
Yeah.
Is that in this handout here?
No, but I forwarded the PowerPoint to the town clerk, and she has all the slides.
Okay.
Yep.
The reason I ask is a couple of things. One of them is I'm serving on the Dare County Complete Count Committee.
Great.
So
Yeah, great.
I've been holding off on getting a lot of information out to the town because I didn't want to be bombarding them for something that's 6 months
Right.
or whatever
Yes, sir.
down the road. The only other thing I wanted to mention to you is that on the Dare County Committee, Complete Count Committee, I picked up that Southern Shores has over 88% response rate at the last.
Great.
So that's a big
That's great.
hats off to the town of Southern Shores. My job is to try and get it up above 88%.
It's a high bar to meet, but.
High bar to me, that's right.
88% is one of the highest I've heard. I do this for 10 counties. That's one of the highest I've heard. So congratulations to you all for that. And hopefully that your job won't be too hard. But to your point about when you want to start getting this information out, we're going to start a mass marketing campaign starting January. That's what you're going to see a lot of national media go out for us. But anytime you want to get the information out, it's called our education phase right now. You're more than welcome to start doing that. But you're right, you want to resonate more when it's fresh in people's minds. So we're going to start doing our mass marketing in January.
January sounds like a good time for us.
But the jobs is now. If you wait till January to apply for a job, you're not going to get a job. So if you want to apply for a job, you got to do it now for the next couple of weeks. So I would say get the information about jobs out now, census in January. And thank you for those comments. Any other questions that I can address?
Anybody else have questions, council? Thank you, Derek.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you.
Council, tab 3 of your book, in tab 3 of your book, you'll see a proclamation. 2020 Census Partnership for 2019-1202. This is a proclamation that I would like to have a motion to adopt tonight from one of you guys. We can move forward with it. So can I have a motion to adopt the Census Partnership Proclamation 2020 Census?
I'll make that motion to adopt the 2020 Census Partnership, number 2019-12-02.
Thank you, Jim. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Leo. Any further discussion about this, council? If not, I'd entertain a vote. All in favor of adopting this proclamation indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. We've just adopted 2020 Census Partnership Resolution 2019-12-02. Leo, can I ask you to join me out front just for a few minutes down on the floor level? You go ahead. I'll follow you. You get back to the chair. This time I'll call on our planning director for his report. Good evening, Wes.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. Good evening, members of council. I have a brief report for y'all tonight for the month of November for planning. There were 8 zoning permits issued, 18 building permits issued. Those consisted of 3 new single-family dwellings, 1 addition remodel, 1 remodel, 1 addition repair, 2 accessories, and 10 others. There are currently 17 single-family dwellings under construction in the town. And the total amount of fees collected by the planning department in November was $13,125.60. Lastly, I'll just touch on the town planning board. They had a meeting scheduled for December 16th, and that meeting has been canceled due to no receipt of applications to consider. Any questions?
Any questions for Wes? Thank you.
Thank you.
This time I'll call on our police chief, David Cole. Good evening, David.
Evening, Mayor, members of council. November 2019, officers responded to 1,418 calls for service for the month of November. That's an increase of 319 over last year. A lot of those are property checks, not bad things in the town or anything like that. And then as a breakdown, the incidents, which are actually crimes that were reported, for November, there were 6 total. 1 of those was a larceny, 1 was a fraud, 1 was an ID theft, a disorderly conduct, 1 overdose, and we also had a service of a warrant. Under the criminal arrest, we had 2, 1 for the disorderly conduct and 1 for the warrant probation violation. And we only had 1 motor vehicle accident that was reported. The officers conducted 107 traffic stops for November, and out of that 107, they wrote 20 written citations and another 71 warning citations. And we had 2 local ordinance violations as well. Any questions?
Council?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Ed Limbacher, our Fire Chief. Good evening, Ed.
Did you not get the other page yet?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, good evening, everybody. So for the month of November, the fire department responded to 60 total calls for service. It was 3 structure fires, 1 fire within the building, 1 outside equipment fire, which happened to be a turkey baster, so, with the oil, so be careful with them. 33 EMS calls, 1 motor vehicle accident, 1 equipment wiring problem, 3 service calls, 6 public service, 6 fire alarms, 3 CO alarms, and 1 citizen complaint, which was a tree blocking a hydrant. And that's it. Any questions?
Any questions for Ed? Thank you.
Thank you.
This time I'll call on the interim town manager for his report.
Thank you
Wes?
again, Mayor and members of council. I have a brief report for y'all tonight from the interim manager's perspective. First, I'll touch on beach grass planting. The town's annual beach grass planting will begin within the next couple of weeks. This will cover the entire beach in areas in which the town's contractor determines that beach grass is needed. Just not going to do, he will not be doing sea oats or sand fencing. This will just be grass planting. Same contractor we've used in previous years will actually be doing the work, so he'll do an assessment to see where the grass needs to be planted, and then he'll plant the grass. The contractor anticipates that the work should be finished by Christmas. So he hasn't given us a start date, but sometime within the next couple of weeks, and then finish before Christmas. With respect to the town buildings code deficiencies that were identified in the buildings assessment, a local contractor has inspected the town's buildings, and he will soon provide us with an estimate for the cost to bring the town's buildings up to code. Once we have an estimate, we will prepare and release a RFP and begin the process of hiring a contractor to complete the work. We'll most likely have to bid this work out as well. With respect to capital street projects, the town engineer has finalized the East Aldwood Trail street improvement plans, and a meeting with adjacent property owners to review the plans will be held here in the Pitt Center on Friday, this coming Friday at 3:30. The Dubarry Lane street improvement plans have been drafted as well, and they actually consist of multiple options. In this case, we will be seeking input on those options from the town's CIIP committee, and that will occur at a CIIP committee meeting to be held on December 18th at 2 p.m. And lastly, with respect to capital streets, surveying and plan drafting for Hillcrest Drive is still underway, so I don't have anything beyond that as far as that project goes. And then lastly, the mayor touched on this a little bit earlier. With respect to the South Dogwood Trail walking path, tree removal associated with that project began today. Subcontractor Admiral Landscapes began the work, and actual construction on the path will begin tomorrow. The executed contract with Hatchell Concrete Incorporated establishes a start date of December the 4th and a completion date no later than June 1st. And that concludes my report. Mr. Mayor, council, if y'all have any questions, I can answer.
What was the start date from Hatchell?
Start date is tomorrow, December 4th. Finish date is no later than June 1st.
Any other questions, council?
Just a quick question. When do you think you'll get the estimate on the building
I
code?
would hope soon. The inspection that the local contractor conducted took place probably 3 weeks ago, so I'm eager to receive it.
Okay,
I'll see what we can do.
okay, thanks.
Thank you, Wes.
Yes, sir.
Town attorney?
I don't have anything to report tonight, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 8 on the agenda shows an exploratory committee to address cut-through traffic report from Tommy Carroll. Do you have one tonight, Tommy? Oh, you're fine. I got you on the agenda.
Good evening, council, new council, welcome. Matt, your own business. How many kids? Two? Two young kids. Appreciate the service. You need a personal assistant. Going to give you a brief update. Looking forward to working with Matt and Elizabeth. I feel like I'm on Shark Tank, and I got two of the sharks, to work with me, if anyone's watched that show. A brief update. November 14th, we had a open forum, well-attended. I'm giving the update to the town council, and all the town council members were there, so they know what went on. It was well-received. It was an open, great meeting, a lot of good ideas. Our next meeting is set for December 16th, okay? Again, that'll be open to the public. I'll be here at the Pitt Center, 5:30, and we look forward to getting to work and continuing moving forward. Our ultimate goal in closing is, and I spoke with Elizabeth today actually on the phone, and I mentioned to her, but I don't want to speak for the rest of the committee, but my general goal would be to ultimately come up with more than one plan for the council to consider, and even if that we have to massage that plan that you like best and share plans, but at least give you more than one option. Okay. Any questions from the council for me? Okay.
Any questions, council? Last chance. Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you, Mayor.
This time I'll open general public comment. Paul Borzolino. Good evening, Paul.
Good evening. Good evening, council. I'm not here tonight to talk about beach nourishment, although I'm still in favor of it very much. I am here to invite all of the council and everyone else here to come and see my Christmas lights display. And I have a little card to pass out which shows you some sample pictures, gives you the address, and gives you the dates. So I'll pass these out to the council, and then I've got cards for everybody in the audience, if that's okay with the council.
That's fine, Paul.
Thank
Yeah.
you. 2, 4, 6.
If you haven't seen Paul's light display up on 7th Avenue, you can't miss it when you go down that street. You start first week in December?
I start, and this is critical, don't come out to see my lights yet, unless you want me to put you to
That's why I
work
asked that
setting them up, because I'm not ready until December 15th. I'm not one of those people that gets them out by Thanksgiving, but they will be up until January 5th. But 7th Avenue, that's all you have to remember. Did I give you enough up there?
You did.
Okay. And here are some for the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Quite a show. Just- In just a moment, I'm going to call on Bonnie Swain, our Human Resources Officer, to talk to us about the process, if you will, of hiring a town manager. We're going to, she'll tell us what she's doing as far as moving us forward. I will say to you that we're looking to bring a consultant on board in January at our January workshop, which is January the 21st, and we'll have a gentleman come from School of Government to tell us what he recommends we look for in a manager based on the history and experience they have in handling these things. And I think there were 3 candidates that Bonnie's talked to. At this time, I asked Bonnie to come up here and come up to the podium and explain to her what kind of where we are in this process.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. In your packet, I believe that you have the list of the 3 firms that were recommended. I have reached out to all of those firms, and we didn't do an RFP per se, but I told them what we were looking for, if they could kind of give us a price so that we could get started, so that we knew what we were getting into. And the price is about $20,000, give or take. Each of these firms are all within line with one another. They're all very qualified. Some have done a lot of large cities and counties. I think all of them have done smaller towns. Some of them have done coastal communities, that sort of thing, that are comparable to us and that sort of thing. I have asked them to send us a list of some of the ones that they have done, and they have done that. And I've shared with the mayor that I would be glad to forward that to the council so that you can have that to make an informed decision of which firm you would like to go with. It appears from what I have looked at with all 3 of these firms, the time frame, if we were to execute a contract with either of these firms in January, the soonest that the process would allow us to hire a manager would be about the end of May. So that's kind of the time frame that we're looking at. I mean, I think if you wanted to, maybe hurry them along, but I think from what I was looking through on these, most of them like to advertise about 6 to 8 weeks for candidates and then narrow it down, and it's a very lengthy process. I did tell the mayor that, I did reach out to them. I talked to all of them. I feel very, very confident that they're all equally qualified. But of course, that would be a decision that the council would make as to who they used. I will be glad to forward any information that you would like that they have sent me as far as references, some backgrounds. One of them is actually a retired town manager who's doing this. They like I said, they've done small towns. Even some of them have helped hire positions for Duke, East Carolina University, NC State, that sort of thing. So it just depends on what you're looking for. And Mr. Mayor, if you'd like, the information that I've received from all 3 of these firms, I'll be glad to send to all the council.
You should definitely do that, I think. So we'll have it in
Okay.
hand. I want to definitely have it in hand before the January 21st
Yes,
session
sir.
we have with the consultant.
Yes, sir. And that will be Hartwell Wright, and he has been in HR for numerous years. He's actually with the North Carolina League of Municipalities and does their HR for them. And he will come and go over with the council, since this is something new for all of our council members, not just the new members, but all of our members. This is a new process for hiring a town manager. But like I said, I have looked through all of these firms, and these firms are all very, very qualified. So I am out of the office tomorrow. I will be in Greenville at a finance conference, but Thursday morning when I get back, I will forward this information to all of the council.
That's great, Bonnie.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question of Bonnie?
Sure.
Previously at council, we had kind of delayed moving too aggressively on this because we wanted to give new council members opportunity to offer input as to what kind of criteria we might be looking for in a new town manager. If that's even appropriate for us to offer that kind of advice, what would be the appropriate point in this process where we can do that?
One of the one of the firms that sent me a time frame, it says January 2020, proposal accepted, contract executed, and then consultation, consultant will send revised proposed draft timeline and job ad for council consideration. It kind of goes through all of this in here, council meeting and public hearing to discuss and approve search timeline and discuss the town manager job responsibilities. So they have all of that outlined, and this is what I will be sending to you as to when all of that will take place.
Okay,
They've
so-
got that outlined pretty good.
So actually, we would offer our desires or
Yes,
ideas
that-
on
yes,
criteria
because-
after a firm is selected.
That is correct. That is
Okay.
correct. So they're gonna, the firm is gonna want to know what the council is looking for in a candidate, so they can cull out the ones who do not meet the criteria and go that route.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Any other questions?
Anybody else, anything else, Council? Thank you, Bonnie.
Yes, sir.
Very much. We have a real challenge out of this because we don't have the large number of towns, smaller towns our size, close by, that have gone through this process in the last 2 or 3 or 5 years. So you have to kind of pick and choose how you're going to select a person to help you make a selection. It's going to be important that we do the right thing. This time, in a new business, I'd like to ask a gentleman from Bay Disposal to talk to us about his concerns with our recycling service.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am here on behalf of Bay Disposal. We currently have the recycling contract for the town of Southern Shores. We're asking to amend the contract for the rate. We signed the contract June of 2018, and at the current time that we agreed to the rate, the processing fee that we were paying to transport and process the recycling was $20 per ton. After we agreed to the contract November of 2018, the rate increased to $65 per ton. Yeah. I'm gonna give you all a little bit of tonnage numbers here. For 2018 to 2019, we collected 482.06 tons of recycling. And that was, that was the end of 18. So it was from January 1st to the end of November this year. So right now that was a current cost of $22,813.95. We just got notification that November 1st, the rate actually increased again. So the rate currently was at 65. It has gone to 110. So once we got notification of that, it was about a 2-week notice. I requested to meet with the town over here. We met with Wes, David, Bonnie, and we tried to discuss, how we could make this the best way possible. So that's kind of why I'm here tonight. The recycling market, I'm sure everyone's heard. Basically, everybody overseas no longer wants to recycle, and it's a lot of contamination issues across the country. So until we get some local mills in the United States, it's going to be a constant issue. It's getting close to the bottom, but we're still unsure if it's going to increase even possibly some more throughout the year. We've spent the last year hoping that it would turn around, hoping that the cost would come back, or we wouldn't have to ask for an increase. But unfortunately, after the November 1st increase to $110, we had to ask for some of that back. So we are asking, if effective January 1st, we're asking to change the rate. It's currently at $5.42 per home. We're asking to make that $7.40. It's an increase of $1.98 per home per month. That would cover the increase that we're seeing and expected if the tonnage was to remain the same for 2020. And I'm going to give you all a little bit of participation rates. So back in July, we did a can count with the trucks that collect the recycling. We collected 2,131 carts, and it was 21.58 tons total for that Wednesday. It was an average of 20.25 pounds per home. November 13th of this month, we collected 910 carts. It was 8.42 tons and an average of 18.5 pounds per home. So as you can see, even in even in the off season, We're still collecting about 900 homes of the 2,394. So we'd like to be able to continue to offer the service year-round. And that's a big part of why we're asking for the increase. Are there any questions I could answer?
Run those last numbers by me about how many homes you actually picked up from. Is it 900 and some?
Yes, sir. So November 13th of this year was 910, and that was 8.42 tons of recycling collected. And then July 10th of this year was 2,131 carts with a total of 21.58 tons.
Do you have any idea of the percentage of our population that actually uses your service? In other words, we've got X number of homeowners, property owners, and you pick up X number of carts each pickup cycle. It's 50%, 40%, 80%?
So during peak season, we would say an average of 85 to 88% is what we were seeing this year. Last year was slightly less, probably between 80 to 85. And then in the off season, I would say it's between 35 to 40 this year %.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Would it help you at all to go to a twice a month collection cycle during the off season? Or would that not be a significant cost savings?
It wouldn't be a significant savings because the processing fee is what's causing the increase. So even if we were to go to twice a month instead of weekly, you're still going to have that volume in the recycling cans.
Same amount of pounds.
Right.
Yeah.
We would probably be able to agree to reduce the price slightly just for the less collection with the trucks, but the significant increase is to cover that processing fee.
Some of our sister towns have decided not to offer recycling to their residents. Rather, they've offered the residents the option of dealing with a contractor who will then deal with them individually. Is that something you offer?
So we do have, for example, the town of Kitty Hawk does offer subscription service. We would consider offering that for the town of Southern Shores if you wanted to go away from the contract for each home. The cost would be, probably significantly higher if it's by home because we still have to cover that tonnage. So right now there's a price break per home for the people that are not using the service, to help even it out. So it would be probably in the ballpark of $13 a home if we were to offer a subscription.
You're talking about $13 per week or per month? Or
per month.
Per month.
Yes, sir.
As opposed to what we're paying now in the
542 current. Yeah.
And proposing it to go as high as 7.
Yes, sir.
Any of the councilmen have thoughts on this, or a question you want to ask, or a suggestion you want to make?
Are you raising costs for your contract pickups in Killable Hills and Kitty Hawk?
Yes, sir. So we actually have this year. There was the same issue.
Mm-hmm.
The other town of Killable Hills, town of Nags Head have already actually been through the increase, and because they are subscription agreements and seasonal collection, their rate, without going into exact numbers, it's approximately double what we're asking for, plus more from the $7.40 here.
What happens to the recycles when they leave the beaches?
So we collect the recycling in our trucks. We have the recycling facility transfer station in Palace Point next to the water park. So we empty out the recycle trucks there. We load it into a 53-foot tractor trailer, and we transport it to, it's not specifically down to one, but 3 different recycle plants in Virginia. That's the closest for us. And it's just depending on volume as to which one. They take it, usually sort it by material, process it, and then, ultimately they have to find the buyer for it.
The reason I ask that is because rumors have been circulating that y'all have been taking it to the landfill.
So with the contracts that we have, it would ultimately ruin our relationship with the towns and counties if that was the case. I'm definitely aware of the rumors. I see it all the time. We get phone calls from residents, you know, hey, my neighbor said that you're taking it to the landfill, and it's like, I have trailer, I mean, we're only permitted to take recycling, so every day my trucks dump at our yard, we load it in a trailer and it goes to a recycle facility. I mean, the only time that I will say it ends up in a landfill, if we take it to the recycling facility and they reject the load due to contamination, at that point, it's rejected recycling, it has to go to a landfill. And just to throw out some numbers, this year, I've probably had 6 to 8 loads that were rejected, but most of them are less than 50% of the load. So, I mean, that, in my opinion, that's not enough to say that we're landfilling recycling.
That's why I asked the question, to give you a chance to
Yeah.
respond to
I
rumors.
appreciate that.
What is all involved in the contamination part of it? Is like pizza boxes or,
It's,
you know, there was an article, you may have seen it a couple, 3 weeks ago in the pilot that TFC had contributed to that kind of gave a pretty good view of what is happening in that market and the challenges of getting the proper recycling material.
So one of the recycling plants that we actually do take recycling to is TFC's. They're a large recycle plant, you know, conveniently close in Chesapeake. We own our own as well, so it's not solely there, but the problem is, like you said, you might have pizza boxes, but even if you have clean recyclable material, say it's a plastic bottle, if it's not clean, that's considered contamination. So if you get a mayonnaise bottle that's plastic, everybody just, you know, once it gets to the bottom, throws it in the recycle can, they can look at that and say, you know, we're rejecting this. It has to be clean, it has to be, you know, in a recyclable state when it's delivered. So they're not gonna take those materials and clean them for us. They just don't have, you know, the manpower to do that. So at that point, they'll reject a load.
They reject the whole load or just,
It's usually, I can't say I've had a whole load rejected. Of those 6 to 8, I would say generally it's about 30 to 50% tops, I would say.
okay, so you take the material up there and do they how do they sort it, manually sort it, and that's when they make the decision, or how do they do that?
So our trailers are walk-in floor trailers, so they have a third party actually that grades the recycling. So they stand at the back of the trailer, and as our trailer is pushing the load out the back door, the third party is actually standing there taking pictures and kind of watching it separate itself when it falls on the ground. And that's where they're doing their grading process. So if they see a lot of, just say there is a lot of, you know, household trash that somebody put in recycle cans, that's when they can say, stop, you know, we don't want any more, quit walking the load off. If they see a lot of contaminated recycle, and even if it is recyclable material, they can say stop. Again, I would say the most we've had is about half of the trailer, you know, in one load. We've never had, like, open the back door and they reject the whole load.
Okay. So you don't really know until is there anything that citizens could do to help make the load more acceptable, clean the plastic bottles, take the lids off, no plastic bags, stuff like that, or?
The plastic bags have recently become more of an issue, and I'm not gonna say it's specific to the town of Southern Shores by any means, but in the loads in general, the plastic bags are an issue. Just trying to rinse out everything that you can would certainly help the cause. I think part of the issue for our area is most of the towns down here, of course, are seasonal. So when you have, just say, guests down here that are from an area that doesn't have curbside recycling, or a lot of places they don't do the co-mix recycling like we do, so they have to physically separate. I don't think they understand the importance of having clean material in the can. So having different backgrounds from all the guests that come down to our area in the summer, I think is definitely a contributing factor. And the state is trying hard to push an education campaign to help clean up the recycling. So they're putting out flyers, they're putting out emails, and I think that it's helping, but it's still not enough.
Is there something, do you have a list of things that we as residents here could do, such as?
I'd be glad to email it to you. I can email it to
Send
Wes.
it to Sheila.
Sheila. Okay,
Maybe
sure.
it's something we could put in the newsletter.
Sure.
On it. Because according to that article that TFC had there, they're basically just wanting clean cardboard, tin cans, bottles, not tin cans, but all kinds of cans, but
And our list is gonna be pretty similar to theirs, just because that pretty much is the new recycling facility standards. It will vary a little bit. I did see that article that you mentioned, and I think our list is slightly, a little bit longer. So I'll forward that to both of them, and if they could pass that along, that would help.
that'd be great. One other question on shredded material. We normally all end up putting them in a plastic bag. Should we leave it that way, or should we dump them out? I'm afraid that we get scattered around.
The best thing that they're asking for is paper or cardboard bags. If you could use a paper or cardboard bag and then just leave them in that, that would be acceptable. But they're really pushing hard to try to get all plastic bags out. So it's even gone as far as the yard waste, that there was some sites that were using plastic yard waste bags. They've even pushed it's not specific to our area, but there's close by counties that are having to actually tear open the bags, dump it in the truck, and then put the bags in a trash can. So, I mean, the plastic, it's pretty tight right now. We're definitely trying to pull that out of the recycle stream.
Is this all this whole market because China quit buying or doing what they did, or?
China was the first country that started refusing the recycling over contamination. It's since kind of trickled down. So, I'd say India, Thailand was probably the next two. And that's why I think until we get local mills in the United States, I think it's going to continue to be an issue. Even then, contamination's never going to go away. I mean, they're still going to have the same problems, but getting it closer and having less cost to transport it there, for them to sort it and find contamination is still going to be better for everyone in the long run. Because trying to send it overseas, and then even when you send it overseas, the loads that they have already processed can still get rejected over there as well. So if they take our material and then they reject it over there, it still has to come back to the United States and then essentially end up in a landfill.
So additional cost to bring it back.
So that's kind of why they've gotten these the third-party graders at the recycle facilities is more of a recent thing, and they're just trying to be fair by having a third party. It's not so much an attack against one company. They're trying to be fair and keep it consistent of this is acceptable, this is not, and they're trying to cut down, allowing contaminated material into their plant.
Do you see in the future having to come back for an increase?
It's hard to say. I'll be honest with you, when we met with Wes and Bonnie and David, I actually told them it was 110, and that was November 1st. Well, in the last 2 weeks, I've actually gotten another notice that it's gone to 120. But I'm not changing the request that I asked for when I met with them. But essentially, it actually has gone up $10 more in the last 2 weeks. So it would be very hard for me to tell you that I'm not going to come back, but at the same time, there has to be a bottom to this, and I really do think that we're getting to that point where the sustainability of the plants at the cost that they're charging is probably where they need to be. I can't promise you, but
There also was in your contract each year you got an additional 10 cents
yes.
per, if the council was to approve this increase, what happens to that 10 cents?
So we're in year 2 this year, so we already have the 10 cents that took effect July 1st of this year, so it went from 532 to 542. If we went to 740, the 10 cents was more to cover collection costs, to be, just to be upfront and honest with you. It was more for the cost of insurance, the cost of truck parts, more of the collection side. It wasn't related to the processing fees. And this increase that we're asking for today is strictly related to processing fees. So the difference today in the cost that we're asking to increase is 100% processing fees. It doesn't cover any of the increased cost in that year over year. So to be honest with you, I think we would still probably ask for the 10 cents in July because the truck costs are not going to go down either.
That processing fee, we see it going up. What is really the drivers you know, that's a result, but what's driving it all for those big increases? Is they just don't have the market anymore, or a place to go with it, or?
Yes, sir. It's the market, so they're having to take so much more labor to separate the material and try to make everything cleaner, even on their end, that the cost on the plant side has increased as well. So we've been lucky, I would say. It's been $100 a ton market for probably 6 months now, and honestly, it just now caught up to our area. So to say that, it sounds crazy that it's gone from 45 to 65 to 80 to 95 to 100, you know, all within the last, call it, year. But to be honest with you, I think our area was a little bit behind this whole time, so I think it's just now catching up to us. And that's why it's pretty much gone from nothing to 110 today. Well, essentially 120.
So the majority of those costs are potentially could be attributed to labor cost of making sure we have clean, recyclable material?
Not trying to speak on their behalf, but I would have to guess from the knowledge I have of the plant side that it would be for the labor. Plus, you know, the third-party graders, the labor, all those costs have probably doubled for them as well.
And what, 2 or 3 years ago, we didn't have those?
So most of the plants before, actually until this year, we actually hadn't had a load rejected for contamination. So normally there was not third-party graders, it was all in-house. And we usually didn't have the issue, until this year, we had never sent a recycling load to the landfill, you know, specific to us. So this is pretty new and recent.
Can I say a word? I didn't get your name when you first started your presentation.
Joshua Smaltz?
Joshua?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he's the one signing the contract.
I think
Yes, sir.
I think you've done a terrific job in explaining to us what's happening in the world of recycling. I guess my next question would be for Bonnie. We're talking $5.42 to $7.40 per customer per pickup, I guess. What per month?
$4,740, and for the 6-month increase from January to June, it would be $28,441.
That's at the $7.40 rate.
Correct.
About a 37% increase.
Right. What was that number again? How many?
Per month or
For the 6 months.
the 6 month is $28,421.
But the problem is, you may be coming back in a couple months asking for this again, because it seems like we're being caught in a national and international market collapse.
It is that way, but at the same time, I've met with the recycling plant, we've talked, and we've tried to get an upfront rate where we won't continue to do this, because, I mean, nobody wants to continue to have a fluctuating rate. So most of our business is agreements through towns and counties locally here, where we're in the same situation. You know, it wouldn't be ideal for us to have to go to every town every other month and say, hey, we need another increase. So I met with the recycle plant, we've talked to them, and we've tried to get a rate this time that we feel is going to cover it for at least, I would say, we feel comfortable that ideally the next 6 months at minimum. Hopefully it'll cover us through a year. We were kind of on a year agreement with the rate, but again, I don't want to make any promises because I can't make that promise on behalf of the plant.
You can't control that market.
No, sir.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
You gave us 2 can counts, one from July and one from November.
Yes, ma'am.
And I totally understand why you picked those 2 months. Do you have other can count data that you could share with us?
I do not have that with me tonight. I
Okay.
only brought those 2.
From your memory, could you speak with some level of confidence about how well those 2 numbers represent season versus off-season?
Sure. So the season begins to pick up. I mean, I have the tonnages for the year, this year, if you'd like to hear those real quick.
I'm more focused on households, if you don't
Sure.
mind, yeah.
So April is when it starts to pick up for us.
Okay,
I would say in April, you're talking probably 45% is what I would guess around for the can count in the town.
Okay,
And then July is our peak for the year. So July, that was the one number I gave you. It begins to slow down mid-September. So September, you're probably about 60%. And then October, about the middle of October, it'll really drop off. So that's probably when you're getting closer to the 40%. And November, December, January, we'd call it 35 to 40.
So there's a big difference, to the seasons, no question about that.
Yes, sir, for
Okay.
sure.
and, no, just so, in your mind, that can count for the season, the peak,
Mhm.
represents what percentage of the homes in Southern Shores?
Between 85 to 90.
85, 90, okay.
So we're making a lot better use of the system than I've been led to believe. I get the impression that we only had about 30 or 30, maybe 40% of our residents who are actually using the recycling, but obviously it's much higher than that.
This year was an increase over last year. We actually had to add another route this year for the recycling, just to make it time-wise work out. You know, we try to keep the trucks off of Highway 12, you know, once it gets late. We try to get the avenues, Ocean Boulevard done. So we actually did add another route this year to try to get the recycling done.
So we're looking at additional, this is kind of a question for Bonnie, we're looking at additional costs of something under $30,000 for us to work with these folks for the next 6 months. Is that going to require a budget amendment? Yeah, I figured it might.
Yes, sir. Whatever you decide, and I can budget another rate to the January meeting, I mean, because, you know, we've only been into the budget 6 months, so I mean, within that department, we're not over, so we're finding it out by department, so I can have the budget amendment at the January meeting for whatever the council decides.
Right, right.
If by some wild miracle, the tonnage rate drops,
You want to give us our money back?
can we renegotiate if we,
Yes, so that's been the conversation that we've had with all the other towns so far. If for some reason, you know, some miraculous event happens where the rates were to go back, we would certainly be willing to renegotiate and bring the rate down to reflect that. Because this is strictly an increase on the processing fee. So if that fee was to come down, we would be able to renegotiate and drop the price to reflect that.
that doesn't happen often, but it does sometimes.
It does happen.
It's an up and down process. I mean, at some point, we do think it'll come back down, but I'll be honest with you, I don't see that in the next 12 months.
A lot of it will depend on the technology that we develop here locally in the U.S.
Yes, yes, sir. If they're talking in the next 2 years having a recycle plant possibly as close as Charlotte, which would be great for us. So, I mean, if that's the case, then I think possibly in 2 years, you know, 2021, call it, the rate could potentially start going back down. But until there's plants closer and in the United States, I really don't see that in the next 12 months.
Any other questions for Joshua, council?
Yes, did you write this contract or was it provided to you?
It was provided.
Okay, because it lacks an escalation clause, which you might be considering in the future. Because it says any additional fees or responsibilities of bay disposal. I think if we have a budget amendment produced to us in January, I would like to see annual tonnages, like a handout, so we can look at this and what your actual burden is, because according to this, you know, I get caught on this in my business all the time. We sign a contract for a price, 2x4 doubles in cost, and I have to eat it most of the time. And this is a considerable increase, and I certainly don't want to leave you on the hinge. My question to you, what would you do if we didn't give it to you?
That's a great question. If we weren't able to get an increase, honestly, because the rate has doubled and it's gone from essentially nothing when we signed the contract to $120 that we're paying, we would probably have to consider canceling the contract.
That's what I figured. So since you are coming to us under a hardship, I think if you could edify us in paper what that dollar hardship is to you over the value of this contract, 'cause currently it's $150,000. we're looking at 20 grand over 6 months, but over the next, there's 18 months left in the contract, so that's another 60 grand over next year. And that's, I want to gingerly step into this, and the more data you give me, I would be more comfortable supporting your
Sure.
hardship, because I don't want to bankrupt you, have ill will of doing service with the town, but at the same time, more than a verbal explanation would make me feel better. 'Cause
And I believe Bonnie has that information, so if she's, allowed and able to share that, then that would be fine.
if this contract was provided by us and it doesn't have an escalation clause to protect you, would you be interested in looking at something that disconnects your actual processing fee from your servicing process, from your servicing costs? So you got your route costs, running the trucks around, and you got your disposal costs.
Mhm.
If we rewrote it, I mean, that's something for Wes, I don't want, or Ben maybe, but,
We would have to, we'd have to consider it.
okay. Just rather than a blanket, hey, things are going up, let me give you a different rate, because like we said, I mean, who's gonna notify us when they go back down, or if they do go back down?
In addition to what Matt's asking for, which is more data, more information about the tonnage, et cetera, could you also include as many can counts as you can?
Sure.
That didn't sound right.
We got it, though.
Because, I was more comfortable with the idea of going to a subscription rate if only a smaller percentage of residents were participating in the program. But what you're telling us is something that, as the mayor just said, we were working on a slightly different understanding. But so the more can counts you can give us, we would welcome that data as well, because we're going to need to hear from the community in terms of what they would like us to do.
I'll be honest with you, I think we have can counts probably once a month this year. I don't collect it every week, because we do have to, that's more of a manual process.
Just whatever you got.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
I guess the only question I have, Joshua, how quickly do you have to have this response from us? Because we won't meet again until January, officially. We could have a special meeting, I guess, at some point if we want to talk about this some more, but I'd like to get the answer to that question. How patient can you be?
I mean, we're trying to work with everyone. We were given, honestly, a 2-week notice on this newer rate increase, so we understand that we're not going to pass that on in the same sense to everyone else. I think January is a reasonable time frame. That wouldn't be a problem.
What's your pleasure, council? Discuss this in more detail and then get back to him, get more information if we can from our finance officer.
Yes, that's what I'm for, getting some more information.
Yep.
I do not know how to put that into a motion, though, that we defer
defer
any
to
decision
January.
until our January meeting.
We can just defer a final decision on this till we get more information and do that in January.
And have a budget amendment, actually.
Just defer the request to amend it till January.
So in other words, between now and January, research will be done on certain items. What are those items? Can we just list those out? Elizabeth's can count?
And the can count. You have the cost.
Annual and monthly tonnage that you process both through the last year and up to the 6 months of this contract, and then your tonnage rate increases and at what point you've hit. So when you entered the contract, you're at $20 a ton, then it went to 45. You absorbed it, you rolled with it. Then at what point did it roll to 50? I mean, I'd like to see every scheduled increase.
Sure.
And get a sense of the pain you're feeling.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
And we have all that. I mean, I already have
I'm
all
sure
that
you do,
available.
yeah.
So I'll just send that on. I'll make sure Bonnie and Sheila get a copy, and then if they can pass that on accordingly, that'd be great.
That'll work.
Okay.
Now, if you can, just get it to us, in time for us to review things before the next council meeting.
Sure. I'll be out of town the rest of the week, but I can get that to you first of next week if that's okay.
That would come through Bonnie through Bonnie probably. Yes. Josh, I really appreciate your presentation tonight. I didn't realize things were quite as bad as they are for your business, but I personally would like to help you out right now, but I think we have to defer to the public and to our council members to make that decision.
Understood. I
Thank you.
appreciate your time. Is there any other questions I can answer?
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Appreciate
Thanks
your time.
very much, Joshua.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Joshua. In your book under item number 11, the second item under new business is planning board appointments, which is tab 6. You're leaving before the fun starts, which is tab 6. I would ask for a motion to table this discussion until our January meeting as well. This is a planning board appointments for this
So moved.
session. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Matt. Any discussion? All in favor of tabling the planning board appointments till our January meeting, our first meeting in January, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we table them till the January meeting. At this time, I'd like to go to item number C, Landmark Commission appointments. 3-year terms for Historic Landmarks Commission Chairperson Lee Whitney and Christine Koussis will expire on December the 6th, 2019. Both members have indicated they would like to continue serving on the commission. Do I have a motion, council, that we would allow them to serve on the commission for that extended period of time?
So moved.
Thank you, Leo. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Any further discussion?
I'd just like to thank the volunteers for serving. I think one of the commission members is here, Tony, but thank you for your service. Really appreciate it.
I would echo that. It's great to have people who step up and take on these kind of roles and do a great job for our town. Did we vote on that? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? I don't think so. Thank you. Motion's made and carried, Sheila. Moving along here. Over the past 3 or 4 weeks, I've met with the incoming council members on 3 occasions and discussed things like our meeting routine, how we do things, basically. One of the things we did talk about and actually called our consultant in to talk to us about our beach management plan update. There were things about the plan that we weren't solidly behind. We didn't feel it was thorough enough, or didn't feel it applied to Southern Shores and our beach situation like it was more generic. So we met with our consultant from Aptim, Ken Wilson, asked him to do revisions of that plan, and I have a motion I'll make in just a minute to address that and what we'd like to have him do for us. But I first want to open the floor to anyone has any ideas or thoughts about this or any discussion they want to make. So I'll start wherever you all want to start.
I'd like to ask a question or maybe make a suggestion, or both. The highlighted portion in our page, in our packet here, down on the goal, it's talking to the goals about providing development, protection of public and private development, recreational opportunities, and biological resources, and it lists a couple other goals there. Can we somehow incorporate into that very explicit language that states one of our goals is having a usable recreational beach or a usable beach?
I think my motion does that, if I'm not mistaken. And I'll be glad to read that to you so we can move forward a little quicker maybe.
That sounds good.
I make the following motion to update the town's beach management plan to include updated goals and an additional option that includes the entire beach, including a cost estimate, the anticipated depth of usable dry beach on completion of the project, dune stabilization, maps with legible street labels, and illustrations of how the beach has changed over time using historic aerial images. In addition to that, Mr. Wilson with Aptim should provide us with these updates in January if we present it in a public forum on January the 21st. So I'm addressing the entire beach, the beach width, dry beach.
Yes. You use different phrasing, but it serves the same purpose.
Right. I think that addresses it. I spent some time this morning with our town manager and looked at what we thought were the deficiencies and the way, and based on what we discussed in our sessions. If that does adequately express it, then I'd ask for
Can you read it one more time?
sure.
Sorry.
I'll try to go slower this time. I make the following motion: to update the town's beach management plan, to include updated goals and an additional option that includes the entire beach, including a cost estimate, the anticipated depth of usable dry beach on completion of the project, dune stabilization, maps with legible street labels, and illustrations of how the beach has changed over time using historic aerial images. In addition, that Mr. Wilson with Aptum provide us with these updates in January at our 21st meeting, to be presented at a public forum on January the 21st, 2020. Have I left something out?
I think it's understood, but since we're modifying the goals, I would only suggest that whatever he does is a town-wide solution.
Entire beach.
Yeah, he said entire beach.
I know.
Yeah.
When you say depth, are you talking about the width of the beach? Is that what you mean?
I'm saying that any project he does has to include the entire beach, north to south,
Right.
south to north.
But you're,
I gave him I mentioned that as far as the usable dry, anticipated depth of usable dry beach. Is the width
depth
of the
meaning
beach.
width, okay, got it.
Does that answer your question?
No, yeah, sounds good.
I worked on this myself for about an hour, and I couldn't make any headway. And I'm not struck as snipe, but I had a pretty well idea what I wanted, but I got Wes to help me, and we came up with this, with what we come up with.
And Ken's gonna send a new set of goals back to us in January, so we'll review.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So I mean, this is just asking for him, and then we'll get a chance to. look.
exactly.
So I think.
See what he comes back to us with. We've touched on a lot of this with him.
Yeah.
But we didn't get everything that we think we need, so this was kind of a follow-up to our original conversation with him. Is that reasonably accurate?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So that's my motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Leo. Any further discussion?
I'd like to add something for the benefit of for the residents here, and that when we met with Ken Wilson, it became very apparent to me that each of the towns out here has very specific goals. I personally have been along the mindset that we kind of take the best suggestions from the coastal engineer, but it came out, and his motion, the mayor's motion, is addressing some of the specific goals that we have here in Southern Shores. It's not one size fits all for all the communities out here. We're in the process now of taking a lot of this data and these recommendations and tailor-making them to our own community here, our own needs. I don't know, I just thought that was worth mentioning for the benefit of the public. I mean, this stuff is not one size fits all. What Nag's Head doesn't fit for us.
Right. And point well made, Jim. I appreciate you saying that. That was kind of the impression that we all had, that we were looking at a kind of a package that worked down here and maybe it worked somewhere else, but is it going to work for us? That's the reason for wanting to revise our management plan.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry if I may, just for informational purposes, update the council on just a couple of things regarding what the motion, what you all just acted on.
We haven't voted yet.
We haven't voted.
Well, what you're about to vote on,
Okay.
excuse me. Before you vote.
Yes, sir.
I spoke with Ken Wilson about, generally what you all are going to ask him to do, what you're asking him to do. And that cost estimate's going to be about $10,000, maybe a little under. And we do have $45,000 budgeted currently for a beach profile study, and it was planned to be spring of 2019. And he feels comfortable, and we feel comfortable that there's enough there, the $45,000 can be used to cover this, as well as you could still do a beach profile study in the spring if you wanted to move forward with that. This would be done as a change order and an addendum to the beach management plan, a change order under the contract we had, the previous work that he did for us. So I just wanted to bring that to y'all's attention.
But it would not require a budget amendment.
It will not, it's already
Okay.
allocated.
The other thing I don't want to steal your thunder, Wes, but the other thing I would add is that, if you were here at the last meeting when Bobby Outen and Bob Woodard came and spoke to us, they committed $225,000 or
$250,000.
$250,000 to each of the towns who want to move forward with the project, is to help with engineering costs, design costs, consulting costs, et cetera, to help us move forward with the project, should we decide to do so.
Yes.
So that would also help. In other words, worst case, we have to ask the county for some money to help us out. We've got it covered at this point.
Yes, and I also confirmed that since we've already had a study completed, and this will be a little bit more work added to that, should the town want to move forward with a project, that $250,000 that the county has agreed to provide to us can be used for permitting and design
Yeah.
for a project.
So cover some of our upfront cost.
And
Yes, sir.
when do they provide the funds to us, or is that based on what we're going to be doing?
I'm not sure. I haven't,
I didn't know if they'd sent you
I
us
don't
a
know
check yet or not.
we haven't had that conversation.
Oh,
but-
okay.
And do we have any information on when the financial consultant will be giving us something to work with?
Well, since you all looks like maybe authorizing some additional work, which includes an additional option that would cover the entire beach, Ken Wilson previously gave y'all an estimate of what he thought it would be if you did the entire beach, but I don't think it was an accurate, exact amount of what they're estimating that the new estimate.
Financial consultant,
I
DEC.
Yeah, I'm getting to that. So, since Ken Wilson wasn't able to provide that estimate and now y'all are asking for that option, DEC can't provide or give that summary until they have this. So once Ken Wilson has done this work, we're gonna get that to DEC, and then they can come up with another model. They've already ran models, which they were going to present to you all in January, and I think we can time this so it's done at the same time as the same meeting, possibly with Ken Wilson on January 21st, so that DEC will have had this information in advance enough to have run a new model based on this new option.
If they don't, can they still come and present what they ran for the old models?
I'll certainly
Or
ask
at
them to.
least
Yes, sir.
present a framework.
Well, it would give us
begin.
a ballpark figure what we're looking at.
I'll certainly see if they can do that.
The thing that I'm getting at when I ask that question is, how are we on the timeline as far as the competition with other communities out here who are vying for the same pot of funds that we are? I mean, if it's gonna take us too many months to make a decision, is there that chance that somebody can slip in and grab the funds that are being offered by Dare County,
That's a possibility.
I'm asking questions that probably nobody has the answer to, but I
Well,
think
the
it's
one that
something
closest that's working hard on it is Avon, but the problem they're gonna have is they don't have the same population. It's the funding.
They've got a different animal. They've got a harder road to hoe
Okay.
than we do.
That's true, but they're the competition.
When I asked Ken Wilson what his thoughts were on this, as far as the timing goes, and being able to, I don't want to use the word compete, but when there have been some articles about Avon, and then the county they have also authorized $250,000 for them to conduct a study. Ken Wilson's response to me was that, well, we already have a study done. We're that far ahead of them. They now just have the financing
Yep.
to do a study, so that's probably a few months at the minimum.
Let's go back and vote on this motion that was made a little while ago, before I forget that we got to do that. The motion's been made and seconded to modify our management goals for our beach, and this time just ask for all in favor of moving forward with this to indicate by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? I don't think so. All in favor? I mean, everyone's approved that, Sheila. Paul, you can speak again if you'd like. Anybody else sign up?
I was thinking about passing my time, since you just had a conversation. I just want to say to the council, thank you very much for keeping the beach nourishment plan, or whatever you're calling it at this point, right in front of you and up front, and not dropping the ball. It's such a critical issue. So, thank you. The other piece of clarification I would recommend, and I know wording these things is often difficult, but as you talk about what I think is a critical issue, which is the usable beach, the dry beach, the distance between the water on some average tide and the bottom of the dune, and as you talk about it as being a depth, I think that can get confusing because depth seems to sound like deep water, and some of the earlier reports that were done by Aptum talked about sand that was under the water as being included. So again, if you can just keep that clear, maybe when you say depth, say from the water to the dune.
Or just say width.
Or say width. I
Yeah.
think
That
width
works.
typically people can
Everybody
get,
understands
or if you say dry beach, usable beach. But anyway, that's after you've made the motion and passed it, but for future, just consider that. Most important to hear from me, and I'm speaking for the FACE group that we set up that has, I don't know, 80 to 100 homeowners who have signed up as being supportive of beach nourishment. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Paul, I'd like to
But-
thank you for your comments also. I'm going to save myself 40-something, 50 cents stamp, and thank you for your comments.
Council, does anyone have any problem with changing the word depth to the word width in the anticipated usable dry beach segment of this?
No.
No.
No, I don't.
Thank you. Then we'll just make that word width then. If when I give you this copy, I'll make sure you voted on that. Let's see. It's time for other business, which means it's almost time to go home. I'm going to give each of you a chance to say something, but I want to start out by saying that on Thanksgiving morning this year, the town hosted the OBX Go Far 5K run and 5K and a fun run as well for younger kids. This was the 9th consecutive year that they've worked with the town, and we've hosted this event for them. We had tremendous turnout. I'm guessing, not even counting dogs, 180, 200 people, and lots of dogs. I left my dog in the car, and he wouldn't get back in the car again for 2 days. It's not really my dog, it's my loaner dog. Anyway, it was Samantha Locke heads up Go Far, and she does a wonderful job getting kids, mostly elementary school, working them through a program where they learn to run, and they learn to get outside and enjoy it and not sit on their keisters. It's a great program. They've put, I think, over 6,000 Dare County students through their program so far since they started 10 years ago. But it's a good event. And next Thanksgiving, keep it on your calendar. I'll remind you of the meeting before because it's a really good turnout. You see a lot of your neighbors there. This year they had the biggest flock. It's called the Turkey Trot. The biggest flock was 18 people in the same family. It was amazing, really fun. Anyway, that's my report on what happened on Thanksgiving Day. Anybody else?
I would just like to welcome the new council members. Beyond that, I have nothing else to say.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, we're striving to make these meetings shorter, and our first attempt fell short of the goal. But,
That's better than we had been.
but please let us keep working at it. We will try to make these meetings shorter at some future date. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
I just got about a couple things here. One is tomorrow, the Red Cross is having a blood drive, and they are in urgent need of blood. It'll be at the Catholic Holy Redeemer by the Sea Catholic Church from 12 to 6. You can sign up online, or you can make an appointment, or you can walk in and do it that way, but they are in an urgent need, and it's amazing. You just never know where your blood's going to end up at. They do satisfy the needs here first, but my last pint of blood ended up at the last drive at the Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, which I was proud to see that. And normally they've been averaging somewhere around 155 to 161 pints, so of blood collected, and that includes the platelets. So anything you can do if you want to participate, it would really be great. The other thing is Saturday is remember Pearl Harbor Day? Some of us here were around. I was 6 months old at the time, so it's 78 years of that. And the other one is, any of you seniors, if you haven't, the Medicare drug enrollment program ends Saturday as well. So if you haven't done anything about it, you might want to get that handled. And that's all I got.
I just want to say thank you. Enjoy being here. Rinse out your mayonnaise jars, save some money. And Paul, your group is very active. Started getting emails from them. Appreciate the emails. I'm committed to considering this. Please tell us how much you're willing to pay for it. Beat that drum as hard as you can with your advocacy group, because that is the million-dollar question, so to speak. So, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Anything else you want to say?
Last thing on the agenda is just to update the council, if you wanted to go into closed session to talk about the Smuts appeal, we can do it in January if you want to. Depends, it's up to you. It's going to be short either way.
It's up to you.
Well, let's get it over with. January might get long.
Then someone would want to make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A3. Consult with an attorney hired by the town to preserve the attorney-client privilege with regard to the matter of Smuts v. Town of Southern Shores.
I would make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion's made and seconded. So at this time, we'll,
We got to vote on it.
Need to vote.
all in favor
Aye.
of going into
Aye.
closed session? Aye. Motion's made and carried.
Thank you, everybody.
We'll now go into closed session.